Alright, so in today's video we are going to be moving this Sony receiver and those Kenwood speakers from this bedroom out into my garage. So in today's video we're going to be swapping these speakers here with that speaker down there and that one there. We're also going to be swapping this receiver here for that one. Apologies for the mess, I've just got a whole bunch of pro audio stuff out here for the time being. And the main reason for doing this video here today is this Sony receiver here started to play up a little bit lately. The volume, you turn it down and it actually goes up and vice versa, and it's just a bit weird and it just hasn't been that great lately. So in today's video what I'll be doing is replacing this with this Sony receiver here, which should be much nicer. I'm also going to be replacing the speakers because that takes a minimum of 8 ohms a channel, that takes a minimum of 6 ohms a channel. And I have been running 4 ohm speakers on 6 ohms lowest, well it only goes as low as 6 ohms. But these are 4 ohm speakers. Again, this is 8 ohms, but these are 6 ohm speakers. I kind of believe you can run slightly lower. I don't recommend it. You can run slightly lower for short periods of time and whatnot, but I didn't really want to be running 4 ohm speakers on an 8 ohm amplifier. I reckon that's a little bit crazy. For anyone who doesn't know about impedances and ohms and whatever, basically picture it like a car engine and you're running boost into it. You can only, yes, you can add more and more, but it's only just going to be adding to the wear on the components and things and run it out quicker. And then you basically end up worse off because you end up with something that doesn't work. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is swapping the amplifier and the speakers for these nice Kenwood speakers we have here and this Sony receiver here that I got from Keith. I'm also going to be wiring them in because these LG speakers that are my left and rights in here actually had their own wire. As you can see, this tiny as little thin wire in there is wire that is actually attached to the back of these as well, and I'm going to clean that wiring there up and make this much neater because it's actually pretty messy out here at the moment. Everything's pretty bad actually in this garage. And another thing that I've got to swap as well is eventually I'm going to add a sub out here as well, because this amplifier here is a 5.2 amplifier which actually has 2 active subwoofer outputs. So I believe underneath all of these rags here, we have a look, is there an LG logo? Yes, there is a subwoofer down there, which I will blow up actually now that I have no use for it. And I'll have to get an active subwoofer out here, which I'm going to probably take my Velodyne out here and stick it there if I can get that Canton off Keith. This doesn't actually have a subwoofer out, so I'll have to use high level ins on the sub, but that might be another video again. But yes, I'll blow the LG subwoofer up that's just down there for a video for you guys, because I've always been curious to know what the sub's like in that, because it's literally just sat there for ages now and played music out of the back or from this receiver here. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is pull this receiver here out and we're going to begin swapping these speakers over. So again, as I was saying before, you can see on the back here we have the front, left and right outputs here, which have a minimum impedance of 6 to 16 ohms. So my 4 ohm speakers were pushing it. But as you can see, we have a super woofer output here, which is used for the subwoofers that were in the back of the original left and right speakers. So I no longer now have an active subwoofer out. This receiver is kind of cool. With the features it has and what it can do, but it's really becoming a bit weird. I snapped off a auxiliary thing in the auxiliary input. I snapped the back of an RCA cable in there once before, and ever since then it hasn't been as good. It just keeps coming disconnected and you got to like wiggle it around and make it work again. The volume knobs become a bit sketchy and it's just really old and not very powerful. So yeah, we're going to be swapping it over for the other receiver right about now. Alright, so as soon as I already have all the amplifier and things out, I'm also just going to give a quick dust around all these areas here to make sure everything's nice and clean when the amplifier goes back. Alright, so this looks really funny to me, but here we are with a blank canvas here to work with now where there's nothing there. And the old system's down here on the ground. We can see the left and the right, the amplifier and the subwoofer. So you can now see this in its entire glory. We can see that we probably have an 8-inch woofer on the side, and I believe this will probably make for an interesting blowing speaker video. So if you're interested in that, let me know with a like on the video and drop a comment down below telling me if you want to see this thing go up in flames. But anyway, now that we have the old system out here, it's time we get this new system plugged in. This system here is going to sound significantly better than this system here, because these are some just generic sort of, stereo in a box speakers, reasonably old, pretty crappy amplifier, and a subwoofer I found on the side of the road. I'm going to be replacing it with some nice hi-fi speakers. These are, oh god, what's the model? Kenwood LK701s or something. They're actually really nice speakers, and they match my Kenwood amplifier I use in my bedroom. Very, very nice speakers for what they are, and I'll be using them out here, trying to keep them as clean as I can. And of course this Sony receiver here, which pushes a lot more power in 2-channel stereo than this thing does. So I'm really excited now to see what this is going to sound like out here. So first things first, let's hook the Sony amplifier up. Let's figure out how much of this wire we need. We're also going to hook up an AM antenna out here as well, because Dad uses the AM radio out here quite a lot. And then we'll hook the speakers up once we figure out how much wire we need, and we'll cut it all up, we'll get it all running, and it's going to sound awesome. Alright, so for the right channel here, we're probably only going to need about 1.5 meters of wire to connect that receiver to the right speaker just here. So let's cut 1.5 meters of wire and hook the right speaker up. Alright, so I now have the right channel and the left channel hooked up into the garage now, which means I'm left over with the receiver and the subwoofer. I'll blow the subwoofer up. I'll probably try and give the receiver to someone I know, and that leaves me with these LG speakers that I'll probably just store in the cupboard for now, but I might have some videos coming in future where I play around with them. But there we have it, the Sony receiver's out here now. What I'm going to do now though is go in and grab my Velodyne subwoofer and stick it just there where the subwoofer was, because I am craving the bass out here. It definitely needs it, so I'm going to be doing that now. And yeah, let's go and grab the Velodyne sub and get some bass happening out here. Alright, so here is my Canton powered Velodyne subwoofer, and I'm going to be using the high level inputs on the back of this thing on the system out here and just sticking it down there. And because this room down here has only this tiny little hole up here that you will not be able to see to run wires through, I'm really hoping that I can unscrew these screws here to unplug the wires from the back of this, slot this cable through, and then plug it back in again, because this bench is actually that thick and I'm gonna have such a hard time with a hole saw going through that to fit the cable through. So I'm really hoping I can just unscrew this connector and pop the wire through, but if that doesn't work, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So anyway, let's see what we can do with that. Alright, so absolutely perfect here. We can see that I can just remove these wires here with these connectors and push the wires through. And just remember that the blue one goes to the right gold one, the brown goes to the gold one at the top. So I'm just hoping that using these for the high level inputs as well, hopefully I can fit both of these wires in the hole I already have. That's what she said, and hopefully that works out for me. Alright, so I now have the Velodyne hooked up with the high level inputs. Everything's all plugged in. However, for some reason now, the moment you hear a bass kick, it puts the amp straight into protect. So I'm not 100% sure what's happening here. I've checked all the wires aren't short circuiting, so I'm gonna have to go for plan B to hook the subwoofer up. So I'll do that now and see if we still run into the same protect issue. Alright, so I now have everything hooked up perfectly, and this amplifier with this subwoofer and these speakers sounds 100 times better than that amplifier ever did. But now it's time. Let's reveal what the LG subwoofer used to look like, and I'm sorry to say, but I'm not going to be blowing it up, because if we have a look over here, this is the woofer. Alright, so nothing too impressive from the front, but it's a nice high roll surround 8-inch woofer, and it's just really nice. So I'm not going to be blowing it. Actually, I shouldn't say I'm not going to be blowing it. I'm not going to be blowing it just yet. I'm going to leave it sitting around, see if I can come up with any use for it, which I most likely won't. That's when I'll blow it. But I'm just going to let it sit around for a month, see if I can think of anything to use it for. Most likely won't, but if I do, I don't want to be regretting blowing this straight away. And so that's basically that. That is the LG woofer there. Very, very nice. Surprisingly good looking sub, and it performed really well too, obviously, because I used it for quite a while. And anyway, as well, my rims on my car, my Enkei RPF ones finally came. I'm so stoked with how this car looks now. It actually looks so nice. Look at that. This thing looks so nice now. But anyway, let's go in and just do some free air on this LG subwoofer here and see what sort of results we can get from it, what sort of frequencies and things we can play. We can see it's a pretty low gauge wire that's just connecting it there, so it's nothing too impressive. But let's see what we can do with this thing. Alright, so I'm actually not going to blow the subwoofer in today's video. I will actually be saving that, or looking at it, sorry, and taking a free air video of it. I will be saving that for another video purely because I just do not have the stuff ready to hook this up in today's video, so all the time. But if you've enjoyed this video of the garage system, it's basically just been a little like tutorial of how I hook a system up and just showing you what's out there. So now you know what I listen to when I'm building these speakers. There you go. But anyway, I've got this cool woofer now from the Sony, if anyone wants to know the model number. There you go. But yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to let me know with a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to my channel down below in the bottom left if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Comment if you want to see this subwoofer blown up. Anyway, I will see you guys later. I hope you enjoyed.